Man, I had an interesting turkey hunting trip Saturday morning.
I want to hear about it just from the short little tidbits. I just from the short little kind of big overview of it. I was like, you always hear about that happening to people, and it's like, oh yeah, it's all so common. And it's like I've never experienced it, and it's like it's wild to finally have somebody like I know experience it.
It made me rethink public land hunting for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard that's the same. That's a similar sentiment from everybody else.
yeah. So I have a friend that gave me some intel last week of three gobblers that were on this piece of public land I've been hunting, right? I was like, sweet. I know where some turkeys are at. I want to try my hand at it Saturday. It should be a nice morning, even though it was warmer than I wanted it to be. So, knowing that it's public, I was like, all right, I want to get there early. So, I got there maybe 40 minutes before daylight, and I park on the side of the road and start walking up the hill. Lo and behold, there's another truck there. Shit. So, I turn around and start hiking up a hill up to a power line and do an owl call, and I hoot, and sure enough, there's a turkey gobbling right where I wanted to go. And there's a truck there. I'm like, well, I guess my turkey hunt's over for today. But luckily, on this piece of land, there's hogs everywhere. At least there's signs of hogs. I've seen some like 2 out of the 100 times I've been out there. So I'm like, well, I know there's pigs there. I just got to be good enough to find them. Um, so I start about maybe 600 yards from my truck, and I
Yeah.
have maybe a mile of creek that I can walk up and then loop back a mile back on the other side back to my truck. So it's roughly maybe a 3 mile round trip walk looking for pigs.
Yeah.
Um, I start the first half of the morning just slow creaking up the hill. I go like 60, 70 yards, and I'd sit and crouch and I'd listen because I was listening for like the hogs like chomping their teeth because they'll
Oh
do
yeah.
that like wear their tusks down or sharpen them or whatever, or like little piglet squealing or something. And I'm getting up to this bottom, so I cross the big creek. I get to this bottom, and it's just covered in river cane. So the river cane's like maybe a foot taller than me, so it's like maybe 7 foot tall, right? So I can't see into it because it's so thick, but I can hear what I think is a pig snorting. And I walk closer, and then I see some of the river cane just start laying down different places. And I'm like, okay, there's pigs in there. But I thought I spooked them, right?
Yeah.
So I get closer, and then I start snorting. I was doing it with my mouth because I didn't have my hog call. It was in my backpack.
Yeah.
And I just keep seeing the river cane lay down, lay down, lay down. I was like, okay, they're in there. So I'm s- I'm on the edge of it, and they're all inside of it. And I start looping around, and I get to the edge of the river cane. I was about to start walking up the hill to try to get down onto them and shoot down from the top of them, or at least that's what I was hoping. Well, about the time I started getting on the edge to start walking up the hill, all of a sudden the river cane starts laying down, coming right at me. I'm like, oh crap.
Getting charged.
You're running right towards me. So I knock an arrow real quick and I draw it, and they're running right towards me. Well, they see me and they start veering off about maybe 5, 10 yards in front of me.
Yeah.
And so I'm tracking, I'm tracking. I tried to take a shot straight into the dirt. Well, as soon as I fired my arrow off, all I hear is gunshots. Pow, 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 pow. I think there's like 6 or 7 gunshots. And I
Jeez.
can see the impacts like maybe 8, 10 yards in front of me. And then I see the dude up on the hill. He has no clue I'm there. And I'm waving my hands, yelling. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he stops and he like looks at me and he stops
Oh
shooting.
shit.
And he goes, what was it? Was it pigs? I'm like, what do you
What
mean?
are you
It
shooting
wasn't
at?
pigs? I'm like, "Oh, I'm over here hunting and you're shooting that movement. He's
Just
like, how many
firing
was
blank.
there? I'm like, well, there's like 30 or 40 pigs I saw. So lo and behold, the two hunters that were on the hill above me scared the pigs, and that's why they started running towards me.
Oh.
I had no clue I was at the bottom. They heard me snorting and thought I was a pig, apparently. And they just started blindly shooting into the river cane because they saw movement. So Lo and behold, that was a pucker factor 1000.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I guess it makes. I mean, you're going out for pigs. Like nothing's going to just be walking through the river cane like that and laying down the river cane like they are. So like I get it why you're just blindly shooting because like okay, they're probably it's 99% chance pigs, but it's just like if you can't see what you're shooting like past it, like you're going to miss when an animal's moving. It's like
If you
what are you
can't
doing?
see the animal, you should be shooting in general.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, blanket, you definitely shouldn't be shooting, but it's like I could understand why they're doing it, but it's just like it's still not okay.
And,
And
like, the greatest part of it is they shot, like, 6, 7, 8 times with shotguns, didn't hit a single thing.
oh, they're doing shotguns. Oh, that's even worse. That's even more
Yeah,
embarrassing.
yeah.
You get thing. But see, I didn't even know you were going to go with the pigs. I thought it was going to be uh you're turkey hunting on a stoop and you're sitting there calling, and a guy just shoots at the stump and like who was it like Waddell, I think it happened to, or there's an older.
Meat Eaters talked about it happening once or twice.
Yeah, I know I've heard from them. One of the guests they had, he said he got like his entire like left side or his leg or something just lit up with pellets because some guy just thought I guess he put his boot up on a stump and the guy thought it was a turkey for whatever reason and just shot his leg. And it's like, how dumb like can you be? But I also had my baseball coach in high school. He was saying that I guess him and a buddy were out deer hunting and he had to go take a poop. And so he goes down to the tree and he takes squats, takes the dump, and his buddy's like, "Oh, this would be hilarious. I want to shoot right underneath his ass and just freak him out." I'm like, okay, that's funny, but like if you miss, like there's just huge repercussions. Like it's not okay.
Yeah.
And so I guess he was pooping right over poison ivy. And so when the guy shot, he just shot dirt and poison ivy up. And he's like, "Yeah, it's not fun to have to put poison ivy cream up your butt."
I do not condone these actions, but it is funny. I was so mad because, like, I spent all morning trying to get on these pigs, right? And I finally find them. And, as soon as I do find them, I'm working towards getting a shot. I have 2 jokers out of, like, a 6,000 plus acre WMA bust my pigs. And I was like, I'm done for today. I'm like, this is enough.
I mean, that's the fun of hunting public land. I mean, you go and I mean, you look at when we went and we're hunting, when we were dove hunting, and the guys started just walking around, and you're just like, "Well, I'm just gonna get peppered now." And you're
Yeah.
just gonna walk, shoot the doves. Like, we're technically kind of, I guess, as a gentleman's rule, like those are our doves to shoot at. And he's like, I'm like, "All right, we're getting peppered now." And it's like,
Yeah.
well, this is
Like,
just going to be how it is.
the hunt, you spend half the time just ducking your head while you're getting rained on.
I mean, and that was like the first time I've dove hunted. It's like I've heard like you get peppered, and I was like, oh, it's probably isn't that bad. But it's like, no, it's constant. Like it's not just once in a while. It's like, yeah, I'm just gonna get shot at every. It's like every rule that you're taught, like do not shoot like around people, like over people. It's like, nah, it's like throw it all out the window. We're not dealing with that.
Yeah,
We're
dove
going.
hunt is like as long as you're shooting at like a 45 where it's going above people's heads and at least just falling straight down on them, you're good.
Yeah, and it's wild. That I mean, that's crazy that a guy just blindly shoots into
There's,
brush. But
there's 2 people. There's a father and son. So the son looked like in his 30s, 40s, and the father looked like in his 60s.
jeez. You think at that age, one of them is going to be smart enough to be like, yeah, we probably should just do this. But and see, I thought you were going to say when you doing the owl call and you heard the turkey, I was thinking like you're doing the owl call and the other guy that was in the truck that was turkey hunting was sitting there and he was calling back to you. And it'd be funny, like you just kind of slowly walk up and creep, and then you just see him from 50 yards or whatever, just sitting there every time you call. He just sits there and he's just hitting his box call.
I've
It's like,
had
oh,
it. So last year I had something like that happen. Got there early morning to a different WMA, and I was doing my slate call and a crow call. I kept on hearing gobbler. So I start running towards it. I do it, and the gobbler sound further away. So I was running after chasing this gobbler for like a mile. I cross like 2 or 3 rows on this WMA, and I get to the last and third row, and the gobbler's super close. And then I for some reason, like just instinctively, like when you cross the road, you look left and right.
yeah.
Well, I looked right, and there was a truck sitting there, and I could see a hunter with a gobbler tube. And I I was running after the hunter all morning, and I was so pissed off. I called Elizabeth, I'm like, I'm coming home. Like, I just spent the last like hour and a half running a mile through the woods chasing this turkey. And there was just a hunter on the other side.
I'm just defeated. I'm just sick of it.
the, the worst part of it is like when I'm driving out of the WMA, I have a turkey run across me in the middle of the road. Like,
Speed up real quick and just
yeah,
hit. It's like, hey, look what I killed.
just insult to injury.
Well, I mean, it was like, I mean, that's happened. I feel like every time that we've gone turkey hunted, when I've driven back home and like went out that evening or the next day or whatever, saw like three, like you just see turkeys all the time. And it's just like, all right. It's like, well, why? Why are you here? Why can't you be where I'm at when I want to go and hunt you? But it's like, no, you just want to have three nice or like multiple nice toms just walking around. I'm like, all right, screw this. It's
I
like
saw
they
a
are.
lot of, I saw a lot of big birds during deer season this year. And it's like,
Can't do
come
anything.
March, they just decide to up and disappear.
Like there was something I was listening to, and they were saying that hunting turkey in the fall is actually like the best season to hunt them in, if you can. And because it's just like they don't care, they're not sitting there rutting, going crazy or anything. So like they're not. There's a good chance you can pull them away from. You just kind of draw them in because they're not just going out trying to breed and whatnot. And so like, oh, it's better to do it that time. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's probably easier if you want to get turkey. It's probably easier, but I was like, it's more fun when you hear all the gobbles out and they're going crazy.
I was trying to tell Elizabeth, I'm like, there's nothing funner than getting a bird worked up and like just hearing it. Just
I
going.
remember when we were out the first time down by you, we went out and crow calling, kind of were just walking off and just decided to pick a line and just start walking that way. You owl called or crow called, and all of a sudden we just hear a turkey gobble. We just stop. And we're like, they do exist, and we just booked
It's
it.
like
It's like, all right, we're going. I mean, you hear that turkey go, and it's like, I don't care. This is the most exciting thing in the world. It's like we're going after it.
well, one of either I think it was someone on the Meteors team. They were like equating turkey hunting to the poor man elk hunt because like
I
there's
can see
kind of
it.
the call and like the reciprocate back from the animal. So like kind
Yeah,
of like how when you're bugling elk.
you're having the conversation. But I can see it. Yeah, because I mean, you can much ease. It's way cheaper to turkey hunt, and I mean, I guess if you're, I guess the gear. I mean, I guess probably the gear is what makes it cheaper. Like if you were to live in a state that has elk and like Colorado and all, it's like $50 for an elk tag. But then you're also going and investing 2-3 grand in gear to go and camp out and everything. So it's
You
like, yeah, the gear is where it gets really expensive. And it's like turkey, and just get a $12 call from Walmart or $6 call from Walmart and just get some cheap camo and walk out with a shotgun, sit on a tree, and just sit there and call.
right.
You don't have to really do a whole lot technically.
Nate and I last year at the place that me and you went, I found this one spot where the turkey are just like nesting at night, right? And got there early in the morning. I was owl hooting and crow calling stuff, responding great. And about 9 o'clock in the morning, the turkey shut up. But since it's close to a lake or a river, every time a loud boat or jet ski would drive past,
You get a
turkey
shot.
would respond to it's shot gobble to the boats. So that's a old boat ramp turkey. That's what I named it at least. And maybe this weekend or next weekend, I'm going to go try to get old boat ramp turkey if he survived last year.
Go sit out there and do it. I mean, my dad told me a story that when he was hunting in Wisconsin when he was a kid, when he was a kid, and he was sitting in a tree stand, and he's like, "There's nothing like you're sitting there in the morning. You get in while it's still dark, and you sit there as the sun comes up, and then all of these turkeys come off the roost." And he's like, "I was sitting in a tree that." He was like right next to where they all roosted, and he's like, "There's nothing like it." He's like, "It sounds like a jet airplane's taking off." He's like, "It's so loud, you just never you never guess it." And I was like, "Oh yeah, what?" I was like, "I never experienced it," but then I was hunting last year. I went turkey hunting, kind of walking around, first time out in Kansas, and I was like, "Oh, I'll just go check out this spot that's like an hour and a half away or something." Because like every huntable property is an hour away from me, so I was like, "Oh, I'll just go here." And walk around. And when I was leaving, I spooked up a quail. I don't like a bobwhite quail or something, and I I got so scared because it sounds like a jet engine taking off next to you. It's so loud, and it's just this small little thing. Like, it's not a big bird, and I just like turn around. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, what the fuck is that? And I turn around, I'm like, oh, it's just a quail. I was like, oh, I feel like a little pussy. I was like, I feel like a little girl now. It's like, I mean, they're tiny, but they produce so much noise. And it's like, you just wouldn't expect it until you hear it, and you're just like, oh, I have no idea what that is.
Now what's scary is during deer season, you're walking into your stand in the morning and it's pitch black. All of a sudden, you hear a bobcat start screaming. It sounds like a woman getting murdered. I mean, you
Yeah.
think it's a person getting like stabbed to death or something. It's just the most bizarre sound you'll ever hear.
Oh, we've heard it. I've heard it once before. Me and buddies from high school were hunting up on some 14 acres that he had access to. And so we were camping out, and one of my buddies was sleeping in his bed of his truck, and me and my other buddy put a tent up, and we're sharing that. And we're sitting there going to bed, and all of a sudden just hear this. We're like, what is that? Because and my buddy was like, oh, he's like, later we were driving home, got home. He's like, I think it's a bobcat. And we're like, why would you think that? I have everything you think. He was like, well, he's like, my fiance, or I think, yeah, wife at the time. He's like, yeah, she sent me a video, like a TikTok video of this bobcat or something going off. And he's like, it sounds similar. And so he looked it up, found the video, and we're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's just this weird scream, like high pitched weird scream. And it's like, you think it's somebody getting murdered. And it's just like, what? And my buddy was like freaking out. He's like, what is that? I was
It's
like,
a Wendigo.
like, nothing we can do about it. And I was like, we're just going to sit here and fall back asleep and hope nothing comes into the camp. I was
It's
like,
Bigfoot. Don't worry about it. Sleep tight.
I mean, they have all the seasons. Bigfoot has to exist. You don't just have 19 seasons and not Bigfoot not exist.
Exactly. I mean, if they found them, their money for their show would just dry up.
I think that's so funny. People are like, "Oh, Bigfoot's so real." It's like, probably not. It's like, no. It's like the amount of game trail cameras and everything that's out there. It's like, yeah, pictures would have been taken.